Qualitative researchers don't just collect meaning. They generate it, they construct it, they build it. You're not simply organising your data, you're trying to understand what your data means. One of the things we need to get really clear on here is that description tells us what happened. Interpretation tells us why it matters. Your supervisor keeps telling you that your work is too descriptive. This is probably one of the most common pieces of feedback that PhD researchers receive. The frustrating thing is that supervisors often write comments like this: you need to be more analytical, needs more interpretation, this lacks depth, explain. But they don't always elaborate on that. They don't always explain what they mean by that. So let's talk about it. One of the things we need to get really clear on here is that description tells us what happened. Interpretation tells us why it matters. That is the key thing you need to start working on if you've had that kind of feedback. In the last video, we looked at synthesis and we talked about how becoming an expert isn't about reading more and more and more and more. It's actually about connecting ideas together. And the kind of analysis that you need to do if you've had the sort of feedback we were talking about earlier is really similar. You're not simply organising your data, you're trying to understand what your data means. In fact, I'd probably go one step further with that, because qualitative researchers don't just collect meaning. They generate it, they construct it, they build it. You're constructing a well-reasoned, transparent and defensible interpretation of what the data is telling you. You're kind of translating in a way. That's a very different thing from assuming that there's one hidden correct meaning in the data somewhere waiting to be discovered, and you've just got to keep digging until you find it. And that's one of those hidden lessons of the qualitative PhD that nobody really takes the time to explain. And it's something that you only really get after you've been analysing your data for a while and after you've asked several people, is this correct? Is this right? Are my themes the proper themes? Am I doing this well? And the particular stage of qualitative data analysis where I first see people grappling with this is when they're identifying codes and then naming those codes. They get kind of stuck and they'll stare at their interview transcript thinking, okay, I have this little chunk here and it feels significant for me, but what do I call it? If that's happening to you at the moment, or if it's happened recently, what I want you to do is stop asking yourself, what should I call this? And ask a different question instead. And the different question that you need to ask at this point is, what is this an example of? Because that moves you away from thinking about what somebody said towards thinking about what that piece of data represents. That is the beginning of interpretation. The same thing happens at the next stage where you're developing themes. Themes aren't just piles of similar codes. They are your explanation of what's going on. And once you realise that, something starts to happen. You begin to notice that your analysis doesn't progress in a nice, straight, neat line. You interpret something, then you go back to your coding, then you revisit the literature, then you rethink your themes, you rewrite something that you'd already written. It can sometimes feel as if you're going backwards. You're taking one step forward, two steps back, but you're not. What's happening here is you're thinking, you're iterating, you're refining, you're improving. In the next video, I'm going to explain why this is one of the most normal parts of the qualitative PhD. But before we get there, there's one more thing I want to go over with you. People often imagine qualitative analysis as moving neatly from coding to themes to findings to discussion. But in reality, you're interpreting all the way through. You are constantly asking yourself, what does this tell me? Why does this matter? How does this help answer my research questions? And those are the questions that move you beyond description. So if your supervisor keeps writing things like needs more interpretation, don't panic. It usually means they're encouraging you to take the next step. Not just writing about what you found, but saying why it matters. In the next video, I'm going to explain why you should probably write your PhD backwards. Because qualitative research almost never develops in a straight line. It develops through iteration, through revisiting and refining. So if you ever feel like you are just constantly going around in circles, I think this next video is going to make you feel a whole lot better about that. I'll see you in there.